What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Fleaflicker NFL Show. I am your host, Arif Umar. I think it's episode 20, I want to say. Episode 19 or episode 20. I am joined by my co-host, Amal. What's up, Amal?
What's up, Arib? Lots to talk about today. The schedules came out, I think, just this past week, so very exciting to see how these teams perform this fall.
Yeah, we have a pretty interesting show for you guys today. We want to talk about our personal top 10 teams going into, post-draft, really. And then we can maybe talk about the biggest games this year in the 2020 NFL season. If the season does actually happen, I hope it does. I think it probably will because the NFL is a bunch of money-hungry bums, but that's besides the point. And then we can just finish up with our, way too early division rankings for next season.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, let's hop right into it. We're going to talk about our top 10 teams for the 2020 NFL season. Again, this might be a bit too early, but what else do we have to talk about? And we're just
Yeah.
going to go one by one. We're going to rank our first team, and then I'll rank my first, he'll rank his first. We'll talk about it and move on. And yeah, you can start them all. Who's your number one team?
Yeah, okay, so my first number one team is the reigning champions, Kansas City Chiefs. I think this should be no surprise to anyone. They even made a great pick in this past draft to select Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think him and Damian Williams is going to be a great tandem. Yeah, I think they have Patrick Mahomes, obviously. They got great receivers in Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, and obviously he's a tight end, but Travis Kelce. Amazing team. Definitely the favorites to come out of the AFC this year.
Okay, I'm going to throw it up. I have the Ravens at number one.
Interesting.
And I think that's just because the Ravens are a better team in general. I think they're better on the offensive line front. They don't have – I don't think they have I don't think they have as good receivers. But running back wise, I think they're definitely better. They have definitely a more explosive quarterback, I think, with Lamar Jackson. Not to say that he's better than Patrick Mahomes, because I don't think he is. But when you look on the defensive side of the ball, and I think this is where the key is at, they improved so much. They got Patrick Queen. They literally have a stud pass rusher now in Calais Campbell. They have so many huge key pieces that a defense like the Kansas City Chiefs are lacking. And I think they're just a better overall team, which is why I have them at number one. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs finished at number one. They're actually my number two team, so spoiler alert there. I have them 1A, 1B pretty much. I just think when you're looking at the entire roster as a whole, and granted, I want to do a deep dive into both these teams later on the offseason, but just from what my general understanding is right now, I think the Ravens are a better team than the Chiefs overall.
Yeah, number two for me, I actually have it the same way. I have the Ravens at number two, same way 1A, 1B for me. Ravens they've added their and I think they got Malik Harrison also in the third round. And then they also selected running back J.K. Dobbins, who's a great pair alongside Mark Ingram. Yeah, it's a loaded team. Yeah, I mean, I'm just Patrick Mahomes is the main reason I have them above. But I think Lamar Jackson, if he keeps it up like he played last year, I would not be surprised if they went number one. But currently, I have them just right behind Kansas City, the defending champs.
Okay, quick question, slight tangent. Do you think a defense can figure out the Lamar Jackson offense? I think we saw the Titans do something along the lines of, almost shutting them down. But I think that was more the side effect of Lamar Jackson not playing well and that offense as a whole not playing well. I want to see if it's possible where you have almost sort of – I think you remember in 2015, Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers, that offense was dynamic, best offense in the league. And they were coming in extremely hot after that NFC Championship game into the Super Bowl. And it was sort of like, the greatest, you have a spear versus a shield. And the shield of the Denver Broncos completely broke that spear of the Carolina Panthers. Do you think something similar can happen where we have a defense that completely cracks the Baltimore offense when they're on like a hot day?
That's a great question because here's the thing. I think last year the Niners and the Ravens played. That was a low-scoring game, wasn't it? That was like 16-10, I think.
The Niners 40. The Niners. I think that was 20-16. I want to say something like that.
20 to
20-17.
you can obviously stop Lamar Jackson. There's definitely Lamar Jackson's playoff performances. That's like you said, clearly is because I think he just performance by Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. So yeah, I think if you have a great defense, you can definitely stop Lamar Jackson. Like you said, like the example you gave of the Broncos stopping Cam Newton and the Panthers in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So we can move on to our third team. You go first.
So my third team is the San Francisco 49ers, the Super Bowl runner-ups, the winner of the NFC. They're they did very well in this offseason. They traded DeForest Buckner away to the Indianapolis Colts, got back the 13th pick in the draft, and they got another defensive tackle, which
Javon
is
Kinlaw.
yeah, they got Kinlaw. That's fine. But then they traded up in the draft as well with the pick that they received, and they got Brandon Ayuk, which I guess compensates for the loss of Emmanuel Sanders to the New Orleans Saints. But yeah, they also did really well in the draft considering they got Trent Williams for basically free. So big ups to them. I think they're gonna have a great postseason this year as well. So look out for the Niners. Yeah, I think they're definitely, in my opinion, the number one team in the NFC at this moment.
So I have the Saints actually as the number one team, but I just want to check something out real quick before I like solidify this because you brought some really good points that they got Trent Williams for literally dirt cheap. They got Brandon Ayuk. They drafted Javon Kinlaw. I want to see do you remember who the Saints drafted in this year's draft? Because I can't really think of any.
They got Cesar Ruiz.
Yeah, Cesar Ruiz and Zach Bond. I like both those picks. I think when you look at the Saints, I think they have a better quarterback. I think they have better offensive weapons. I'm going to include Taysom Hill in this context as well. They don't have the same level of tight end because, George Kittle is one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in the league. But when you look at the Saints, I think just overall, when it comes to playoff time, I trust Drew Brees more than I trust a player like Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think Sean Payton is almost right up there with Kyle Shanahan when it comes to scheming up offenses. If you look at the way he's used Taysom Hill, it's fantastic. I mean, Taysom Hill is pretty much another wide receiver for that team, play special teams. They know how to use him so well. Sean Payton's a great coach. And when you look on the defensive side, they still have some pretty nice players in there. Their linebackers got hurt, I think, and that really hurt them when it came to playoff time. Hopefully those guys come back healthy, and if they do, I think that team could, maybe be a slightly better defense than what it was against Minnesota in the playoffs. I really like Cameron Jordan, obviously. The man's a stud. I think for me, the Niners are the fourth best team, and again, it's sort of a 1A, 1B with the NFC when it comes to the conference as a whole. I think the 49ers, just when it comes push to shove, whatever that first saying is, I think I trust Drew Brees more than I trust Jimmy Garoppolo. And I trust I don't know if I trust Sean Payton more, but purely looking at the quarterbacks, I trust the quarterbacks more on the Saints than I trust the quarterback for the 49ers. So I will rank them a little bit higher. Again, it's a 1A, 1B situation.
Yeah, I'm surprised we still have the same teams for the top four. I have the Saints at 4. also the same way. I think it's not even that big of a difference between the Niners and the Saints. Actually, even the top four altogether, I think easily the top two NFC teams could overtake the top two AFC teams. So not a big deal whatsoever. I think the Saints actually have 0 holes on their team too. So they've filled every hole. I think, especially with the Cesar Ruiz pick, and Zach Bond was a steal in the second round. And then they got Malcolm Jenkins to replace Von Bell. That was a big addition.
That's a huge
Yeah,
piece as well.
yeah, yeah.
Malcolm Jenkins can play that sub linebacker. He can play slot corner if you need him to play slot corner. He can play strong safety, free safety, whatever you wanted to play. He's such a versatile piece that he automatically improves that New Orleans Saints defense.
And their receiving core just got better, especially like I said, and for the Niners, they just got Emmanuel Sanders. And Emmanuel Sanders, for me, I still value him quite highly. I think he's probably around top 15, top 20 wide receiver. That's my opinion. And alongside the best performing receiver last year, and Michael Thomas. Yeah, great team. I just hope to see Drew Brees keep it up. And yeah,
Look to see Alvin Kamara have a huge bounce back year as well. I think, and he wasn't bad by any means. Don't get me wrong here.
Yeah,
I think he was slightly disappointing just because usually in the top 10 running backs like conversation, maybe even top 5, you have Alvin Kamara sort of hovering around there. This year he was sort of unheard of, and you watch playoff games and he didn't stand out to me the same way that he did in previous years. And honestly, I think he's going to have a huge bounce back. Alvin Kamara is the type of guy where, he bounces off first contact so often. He didn't really get in the end zone this year, like at all. I think he got in like the first couple games and he really didn't get in much after that. Look for that efficiency to go back up. There's no way a man who gets that many touches like Alvin Kamara doesn't feast in the red zone. And I think that offense as a whole will improve. So just look out for Alvin Kamara. I think he's going to bounce back in a big way.
Yeah. So my number 5 pick, I got Seattle Seahawks. They have been making the postseason very consistently now. Great team altogether. Russell Wilson, I think he's top 3, top 5 quarterback in the league, killing it. It's going to be interesting to see who wins the NFC West this year because all 4 teams, I mean, even though it's very weird to say the Rams are the worst team in the division, considering just 2 years ago they were in the Super Bowl. That's my opinion. I think they're the worst, but even then, that shows how stacked the division is. It's going to be very interesting to see how the NFC West turns out, and we'll get more into detail with the NFC West later on in the show. But yeah, I got Seattle at 5 because also they got Darrell Taylor in the second round. Great pick up there. And yeah, I just think they're top 5 team. That's just all I can say.
First team that we have on the same level. And for me, this pick solely goes to the fact that Pete Carroll can do whatever he wants to, not help Russell Wilson. And granted, Pete Carroll's a great coach, so no shade thrown at him at all. I love Pete Carroll. But Russell Wilson, I think there's a Russell Wilson rule almost in the NFL where it doesn't matter how bad that Seahawks roster is. He's just so good where he can just, magically carry that team. Even when, in years he shouldn't do it, they're always competitive. I think there's only been 1 year where they didn't make the playoffs in his tenure, which is ridiculous. I think that's since 2012.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson is just a magical player. I think he's one of those players that we're going to look back in 10 years when he's probably retired and be like, dang, we really got to live through those years of Russell Wilson just carrying his team. I think this roster is nowhere near as talented as other rosters, but the Russell Wilson rule alone solely puts them at 5 for me.
Yeah, I agree. So my number 6, I think I hope we agree on this one. Now, my number 6 here is the Minnesota Vikings. They did lose Stephon Diggs to Buffalo, but they replaced it immediately with Justin Jefferson. And they also lost Xavier Rhodes to the Colts, and they replaced him with Jeff Gladney out of TCU. And they got Ezra Cleveland in the second round and Cameron Dantzler in the second round as well. Uh, Overall, great additions to their team. But they did lose Everson Griffin. That was a big loss. But I'm very confident in the Vikings this year. They had a great playoff run last year, magically beating out the New Orleans Saints, who many people had them in the Super Bowl. So great job for them. Kirk Cousins, I'm definitely seeing his game evolve. I initially, in the beginning of this of us making the podcast, we kept on saying Kirk Cousins needs to step it up, and throughout the season he kept on stepping it up. And in the playoffs he stepped it up completely, carrying the Vikings to their playoff win.
He was
Yeah,
listening to the podcast, man.
yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting division too. Vikings are there, the Bears, but I think the Packers are the main team to watch out for in that division against the Vikings, I should say. And yeah, Vikings for me are at number 6.
Okay, so for me, I forgot about the Vikings. They're actually not in my top 10. And I think that's just by sorely much. It might be just because I forgot them as a team, like straight up. I just forgot they existed. But also, you were talking about the big losses they had. They lost Linval Joseph. I don't really think anyone they drafted or brought in free agency can replace him. They lost Everson Griffin. Same thing there. Really, they only have Danielle Hunter, and they're going to be relying on a lot of rookies this year. And they lost, I think his name was Mackenzie Alexander, their slot cornerback. They lost Xavier Rhodes. Xavier Rhodes was doo-doo. He was just not good. But when you look at Mackenzie Alexander, he's one of the best slot cornerbacks in the league. And I don't think a rookie can come in and fill that hole immediately. Also, I like their draft. They drafted some pretty competently. Like you said, Ezra Cleveland in the 3rd round is a great pick. That being said, I don't think when you look at like Justin Jefferson, I don't think he's going to come in and immediately fill the void that Stephon Diggs had. Stephon Diggs was like a top 15 wide receiver. I don't think a rookie – this isn't like in the 2014 rookie class where you had, Mike Evans and Odell and you had Jarvis Landry. All of them are playing extraordinarily well. It's very rare that you see that happen where the rookie wide receivers are huge, are huge thing that impacts that team rookie year, like freshman year. It's not going to happen for them. I think Justin Jefferson will be good. If I'm ranking the Vikings, I might put them in probably the 10th spot for me. If they're making my top 10, probably closer to 11. But when I talk about my 6th spot, I have a team that might shock you actually, but I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as
Wow.
my 6th team, and I'm extremely high on them.
Wow.
I
Wow.
think
Wow. High. That's
that
very high.
offense for me is explosive. You have Tom Brady. Tom Brady is going to be able to do whatever he wants on the field, I think. People are saying, oh, Tom Brady lost a step. Tom Brady is still the same Tom Brady. He's still an elite quarterback. You give him players like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You give him literally Gronk again. Like Gronk to me is remarkable that they somehow pulled him out of retirement. OJ Howard. You have all these elite players. I think the only flaw in that offense for me is offensive line. And they drafted Tristan Wirfs to hopefully shore that up a little bit more. And on the defense, they have Shaquille Barrett, one of the best pass rushers in the league that was not really talked about last season. And they also have an underrated defensive talent when it comes to just in general. They have some nice linebackers there. I think they still have Levante David. I think the Tom Brady effect is going to carry this team. I don't see them doing extraordinarily bad. I think they're definitely going to be a team to look out for. They still have Ndamukong Suh on that team, and granted, Ndamukong Suh is not the same Ndamukong Suh that he was previously, but he's still a hell of a player. I might just be higher on them than other teams, but that's just the way I see it here.
Yeah, for me, I actually don't even have the Bucks in my top 10. I don't even have them as the top half of the NFC South. I'll be honest. I think
Ooh, the Falcons
yeah,
then?
actually never mind. I do have them. I have them in the top 2, but I don't have them in my top. Yeah, I don't have them in my top 10. But I'm kind of surprised because this is giving me Browns type of vibes, dude. Because the Browns on paper last year, could have won the Super Bowl. Point blank. They had the best team all around on paper, and they failed miserably. Um,
Here's my thing for you
Here's the
on that
thing,
one.
right? They have Rob Gronkowski back, tight end. He hasn't played in 2 years. He's now starting tight end, I think, alongside obviously OJ Howard and Cameron Brate are there. I also don't know how much of an upgrade Tom Brady really is going to be towards a guy like Jameis Winston. I don't know.
I will
I'm
tell
not
you exactly
on
why he's
the
going to
hype
be a huge
train.
upgrade for that
I'm not on the big hype train. I think they'll still. I think we'll get onto this later. I think they will still be a playoff team. I think maybe they will be a playoff team. I'm actually not sure, but yeah.
Tom Brady.
He did not do well last year.
He didn't do well last year because they had no weapons last year. He's gonna be so good. I'll tell you right now why he's an improvement over Jameis Winston. He's not gonna throw 30 picks. He's not gonna have like 8 fumbles. Tom Brady takes care of the ball. That defense is gonna be in way less negative game strips where they're gonna have a turnover, and if it's not a touchdown like a pick six, most of the time it's the other team's offense getting the ball in plus territory. And that's just not something you're gonna get with Tom Brady. He's gonna massively help the offense with less turnovers. He's gonna massively help the defense by again less turnovers, and they're gonna be more positive game scripts. I just don't see how they don't have a top 10 offense or maybe even top 5. They're gonna be an explosive team. Again, I might just be higher on them than other teams. So that's definitely what it is, but.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we'll see later on.
Who's your
So
7th team, Amal?
my 7th team is probably also gonna shock you because they are kind of high in my opinion. 7th, I got the Dallas Cowboys.
Boo.
This is mainly because if everything goes right for them this year, they should. They have CeeDee Lamb and they have Amari Cooper, great receiving tandem, and Michael Gallup, great receiving tandem, completely. And then their running backs, they got Ezekiel Elliott, of course, Dak Prescott at quarterback. But the thing is, they didn't necessarily do great in the draft to solve their biggest holes, but they did draft, I believe, Trevon Diggs, I believe, and that was a great pickup, I think. But I think the biggest hole I think they missed out on, I think, was the Travis Frederick retirement. Because Travis Frederick, he did come back last year and he did his job well. And then they lost Byron Jones, who was an all-pro corner. Although it was good that they let him walk, considering how much he was getting paid by the Dolphins. But that was a big loss as well. But I also like – the main reason I have them this high is because I like the new signing of Mike McCarthy, mainly because he's definitely an upgrade over Jason Garrett. And anything above Jason Garrett is fine with me. Yeah. If everything – that's a big if. If everything goes well, they'll hit it out of the park. And I think based off the schedule that I see as well, they should hit it out of the park there as well. Yeah, that's why I have them at 7. And that would basically have them, in my opinion, taking the NFC East.
Okay, so I won't tell you where I had them on my list. They're definitely in my top 10. Actually forget it. They're my number 9 team, right? And I'm going to talk about my number 7 team first, and then we can talk about the Cowboys a little bit later. My number 7 team is the Green Bay Packers. I think they were probably the most fraudulent team last year. I think you've said that to me multiple times where they should not have gone 13-3. I don't think they go 13-3 this year. I think they hover more around like 10-6, 11-5. And I think that's good enough to win the NFC North. But for me, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be so pissed off because of this Jordan Love selection. I just have a feeling he's going to pop off, man. I don't know why. He's done it multiple times in his career where he turns it up and he's literally the best player in the league. And I'm just getting that vibe that the Packers they have a good team now this year. Last year as well, they didn't rely on Aaron Rodgers as much. And I think if Aaron Rodgers can turn up his game, second year in a new coaching system. Usually the first year for the quarterback doesn't tend to be good. And even if the team was successful, Aaron Rodgers wasn't necessarily extremely successful. But Aaron Rodgers is still the same Aaron Rodgers. Some people think he might have lost a step, but when he needed to turn it up, he did turn it up most of the season. I think this second year in the Matt LaFleur system, I think it's going to pay dividends. I think, again, when you look at a team like when you look at the Packers, they're not going to suffer from other teams. Like if you look at the Cowboys, right? Mike McCarthy, a rookie head coach, they're not even allowed to have training camp right now. How are they going to institute an entire offense? Versus like a team like the Packers, which is why I have them ahead of the Cowboys. They don't have to do that. They already have a coach who has a system. They just need to work more on that. And I think Aaron Rodgers in the second year of the Matt LaFleur system is gonna go leaps and bounds. I think he's gonna have a huge bounce back year, quote unquote, because he had a really good year last year still. But his standards are so high because, again, he's Aaron Rodgers. That team actually has a defensive line now. It actually has secondary players, which it didn't have before. Darnell Savage is a great safety in the back there. Jair Alexander, another great guy. Kevin King matches up well against those bigger wide receivers. They lost Blake Martinez, but the way I see it, they didn't even really make an attempt on Blake Martinez, and that might be because of their cap, and it might be also because Blake Martinez didn't fit the system they were trying to run there. I think Packers were definitely the best team for me in this NFC North. What say you about the Packers? I don't know if you had them in your top 10.
I do have them on my top 10, and in fact, I had them at the next spot. I have them at 8. I think they're only worse than the Cowboys by a little bit because of their piss poor draft. This was an awful draft for the Packers.
I can agree with that 100%.
I didn't think a single pick was actually a great pick. Unless Jordan Love becomes the next Aaron Rodgers, it's an awful draft. And even then, I don't even know. Like, it doesn't make sense still to this day. I don't understand that. But yeah, they didn't solve any problems. It almost looks like the same team as they had last year. Literally.
Is that a bad thing though?
And they added AJ Dillon. No, it's not, because here's the thing: they were in the NFC Championship game, which, in my opinion, if any team gets at least the NFC Championship game or the AFC Championship game, I consider the season somewhat successful, based on the talent that you have around you. And for the Packers' case, it was a successful season last year, if you ask me. But the thing is, they didn't. Normally, you want to have some type of improvement, and considering other teams are improving and they're not, and it's kind of a scary sight for me. That's the only thing. I also agree with you. I think Aaron Rodgers is gonna have a killer year this year. I think he'll prove the haters wrong, prove especially Matt LaFleur wrong in the need of drafting a quarterback. I didn't understand that at all. And they're 8 for me. That's all I can say.
Okay, so for my 8th team, I had the Philadelphia Eagles. So do you have them in the top 10?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'm guessing you had them at 9 then, right? Right below the Cowboys?
Correct. I have
I
have the Packers at 8, Cowboys 7, and I have Eagles at 9. Yeah.
Okay, so we can talk about the Eagles-Cowboys discussion here. So I did a deep dive into the roster. I'm going to make a video about it soon. I've been saying that for a while, but I think probably later this week we'll have a video out on that. When I look at the Eagles, they're better at the quarterback position. They're better at O-line. They're way better at D-line than the Cowboys. Better probably in the cornerback, tight ends, safeties. I think safeties are probably neck and neck. But when you look at the team, I think Carson Wentz is definitely better than Dak Prescott. You have Doug Peterson, who has, they're not going to have problems when it comes to, instituting a new scheme. They've already done that. Doug Peterson is definitely a better coach than Mike McCarthy. And when you look at Doug Peterson, again, like I'm saying, no training camp, that's going to be a huge blow to the entire NFC East. I think when you look at a team like Dallas, right, you hit on it well. They didn't really fix many of their holes. I have a ton of notes written down for them. For me, you said Travis Frederick was a hole. I don't think that's going to be a massive thing. Joe Looney filled in 2018 the entire season for them. when Travis Frederick missed that entire year with the Guillain-Barré syndrome. Joe Looney came in and he played admirably. I don't think he's going to be a Travis Frederick type of player, but he can definitely fill that hole when it comes to it. But when you look at the defensive line, right, their second best pass rusher is Tyrone Crawford. And he was the one guy on the Falcons who had like 6 sacks that one game against the Cowboys. But in reality, he's done nothing his entire career. They're too dependent on Aldon Smith and Randy Gregory, both guys who need to be reinstated. Aldon Smith hasn't played a game since 2015. Randy Gregory hasn't played a game since 2018. That defensive line is hugely flawed. I think when you look at the tackle spot, they improved. I think they lost Malik Collins, but they replaced him with Gerald McCoy and John Terry Poe. I think both those guys I think combined are definitely better than Malik Collins. And Neville Gallimore, their third-round draft pick, another really good developmental guy, and I think he can come in and make a huge impact immediately. For me, their linebackers are where it's the key here when it comes to the defense. Sean Lee is still good. Jalen Smith, he declined slightly, but he's still, probably top 15 player at his position. Leighton Vander Esch hugely declined. I looked at this. He missed tackles 3 times as much as he missed in his rookie year. So I think he had like a 5% missed tackle percentage his rookie year. His sophomore campaign, it went up to 15%, literally tripled. That's not something you want to see. You want to see improvement. And not to mention, he missed 6 games with a neck injury. That's just a huge flaw. That 2018 Cowboys linebacker group, it was so good. It was the heart and soul of that defense, and it took a massive hit with Leighton Vander Esch, hugely underperforming. I think Byron Jones, I don't care who you draft to replace him. I don't think they're going to come in and instantly replace him. They drafted Trevon Diggs. I really like him. Chidobe Awuzie is another good guy. I think he's more of a really good corner too. I don't know if he can play that cornerback one role. When you look at the roster overall, it's talented. It's really talented. But the flaws and the lack of depth, in linebacker especially, defensive line, I think those are what are killers to me. Even wide receiver, their wide receiver depth is almost non-existent when they got rid of Randall Cobb. They have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, probably the best starting 3 in the league. Michael Gallup had 1,000 yards last season. Amari Cooper, perennial 1,000-yarder. And CeeDee Lamb, me and you both agreed, best wide receiver in this year's draft class. But outside of that, they have Cedric Wilson, Noah Brown, John Vea Johnson, Tevin Jones. Like, who are these guys? These are practice squad guys. If, God forbid, something happened to Michael Gallup or Amari Cooper has had injuries in the past. God forbid anything happened to them. What do you do?
They can pick up someone from the waiver wire. All right, so
okay.
So I got the Eagles at 9. They are the defending NFC East champs. But their main issues for that needed help were cornerback and receiver, and they tried to fill the hole with Jalen Reagor in the first round. Here's the thing, and then in the 5th round they also picked, I believe, Hightower. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
John Hightower. Yeah.
From Boise, I believe.
From Boise State. I don't know if those are necessarily going to fill the holes in the need of wide receiver. So yeah, I think they're still a great team. I think their secondary is definitely, their defense in general, I think, is better than Dallas. Their secondary is amazing, considering they added Darius Slay as well. And our friend Matt is very high on Kayvon Wallace.
I think he's probably the best pick in the draft, to be honest.
Yeah, he was a great pick. But yeah, I think they're a great team. I only have them slightly below Dallas because even with the Eagles receiver depth is trash, considering they have Jeffrey, they have Jeffrey, they have
Deshaun Jackson.
They have Deshaun Jackson, and they have Reagor. And then after that, they got Arcega Whiteside,
Marquise Goodwin, Greg Ward. I'd say our wide receiver depth is definitely better than the Cowboys.
Greg Ward is only going to be – all right, I'll be honest. If you live outside of Philly, no one's going to talk about Greg Ward. he's overhyped even here. I'm being serious. He is. He's way too overhyped. I think it's not the depth. Okay, Cowboys' depth is trash also for receiver. They have an amazing top three, definitely better than the Eagles' top three, and that's the main reason I'm actually having them below. And their stellar running back in Ezekiel Elliott. I think Ezekiel Elliott's also miles better than Miles Sanders. But I hope Sanders does well this year. I think he'll get 1,000-yard rushing season. Yeah, I think it'll be a very close division, tight race. We'll give our obviously towards later in the episode we'll talk about our standings predictions. I think the Eagles will obviously still make the playoffs. It would be a failure of a season if they didn't. But yeah, I think that's the main reason I have them at 9. And I'll go on to number 10. Number 10 for me is my favorite team in the NFL, the Indianapolis Colts. This was the main reason because they had a great draft, in my opinion. I didn't see many, if not any, bad picks. Maybe Blackman at the 3rd round was a bit early, but I think this draft was probably one of the best drafts they've had in a long time.
That's saying something. They drafted 2 All-Pros 2 years ago.
Yes, exactly. And they drafted this year in the 2nd round, they drafted Michael Pittman Jr. Great pickup from USC. I think that's going to replace the need for receiver, considering last year they had such a big major injury bug at the receiver position. Last year, our 2nd round pick, Paris Campbell, basically didn't even play last year because of all the injury issues he had. T.Y. Hilton was such an injured scratch. It's like ridiculous. He played probably like half the season. Zach Pascal was wide receiver 1 for most of our games. Very poor. And I think Michael Pittman can fill that hole because I think Michael Pittman can be a true wide receiver 1, and he could even overtake T.Y. And I like Michael Pittman Jr. and T.Y. together. That's a great duo. And I like the running back tandem that we have with Marlon Mack and the newly added Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin. You had Jonathan Taylor as your best running back in the draft. I have my top 2, obviously. I think now, looking at tape, he's killing it. I love him. But yeah, I think I think Taylor's going to develop into being the running back 1 on the Colts. The Colts just announced today that they're planning on splitting carries with the 2. And the main issue last year was at quarterback. And quarterback, they solved the problem. Brissett was great when he was healthy. He went 5-2, but then after that, he was injured. He played injured. And then even when he was restored to being healthy, he never really proved himself. We started off 5-2, and then we ended the season with like 6 or 7 wins. That's it, and that's not cutting it for us. And the addition of Phillip Rivers, now that Phillip Rivers has a real offensive line, probably top 5, top 3 offensive line in the NFL, and our improved D-line with DeForest Buckner there. Yeah, the Colts are definitely something to look out for, especially with the easy schedule that they have this year. Yeah, they're definitely, in my opinion, the AFC South favorites. I don't know how else you can put it. Yeah, and that's why I had them at 10.
So I have, similar to the Vikings, I have them like right outside the top 10. I'd say I have the Colts hovering around probably 11 to like 14-ish, that range. So they're definitely like borderline playoff contention, in my opinion. They probably will make the playoffs. I think that's just how it's going to go. But I had the Tennessee Titans here. I think Mike Vrabel is definitely the best coach in the AFC South. I know you probably disagree with that, but if anyone makes the AFC Championship game, I'm gonna say you have enough talent and you have a good coach. Mike Vrabel, he has a nice culture established there in Tennessee. When I look at their offense, they have a lot of like young players who can improve. They drafted Harold Landry in I think the 3rd round from Boston College. He's shining right now as a pass rusher for them. Rashaan Evans was a rookie last year, I believe. He is going to improve again, just 2nd-year improvement. That's going to happen. Jeffrey Simmons, another guy who he played decently well, I believe. And he was coming off an ACL as well. You got to keep that in account. They have a lot of guys who I think can only go up. It's Corey Davis as well. I think he can only go up in year two with Tannehill. You have an established quarterback, and Ryan Tannehill. When there's tons of memes going around that he relied on Derrick Henry, but when push
He
came to
did.
shove, yeah,
He did.
in the playoffs he definitely. I wouldn't say he relied on Derrick Henry. That was the game plan. Derrick Henry. When Derrick Henry is going off for like 180 yards every game, you're not going to stop running him. You have to run him. But when it came to making plays throughout the year, not just in the playoffs, Ryan Tannehill came clutch. Third downs, did it. Against the Ravens in the playoffs, did it. Made huge throws when he had to. And Ryan Tannehill, people are forgetting, Marcus Mariota, when he was in there, that team wasn't even close to being a playoff contender. They were like 2-4. Ryan Tannehill came in, he won like 7 games or whatever. He sparked that team. He's that leader for that team. When I look at the wide receivers, I think I really like AJ Brown. I think he's going to have a big second-year leap, and he had a really good rookie campaign as well. One thing that does concern me, Derrick Henry, if he does get injured, and he did have a hamstring injury to end the year, if he does get injured and misses games, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. The depth they have right now is
Non-existent.
non-existent.
Yeah.
Sorry. Darrington Evans is not going to cut it. Granted, you have guys. I know Carlos Hyde is getting traction from the Eagles currently, but you have guys like Carlos Hyde, LaShawn McCoy. You have players like that who could potentially
Devontae Freeman.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah, Devontae Freeman. But when I look at the team, I just think they have good enough talent to be a high contending team. They still have Kevin Byard and Kenny Vaccaro, both elite safeties. I just think when it comes to coaching, they're a better coach team. And when it comes to the fact that they literally made the championship game, there's something there in Tennessee. And I think if they can hopefully put it together long term, they can be a good team. I think the Colts will still be a good team and will definitely compete. I think the Titans will be a slightly better team this year.
All right, so I have the Titans actually probably around the 15 range, the 14 to 15
a bit low.
range. That's and I honestly have no way I could see them as top 10. I can't. I mean, I really can't. I think the Steelers are better. I think the Bills are better, and I think the Colts are better too. But I think the main reason I have them that low is because they lost Jack Conklin, great tackle. They lost. They're about to lose Logan Ryan somewhere, and they lost Jarrell Casey. And I honestly don't believe in Tannehill. I'll be honest. I don't believe in Tannehill for the second year. I think defenses will start to figure him out. And Derrick Henry, absolute stud. I think he played like the best running back in the NFL in the playoffs last year. He ended the season as the best running back in the NFL last year, if you ask me. But I don't know. I think defenses. I mean, it's hard to figure out Derrick Henry for sure, but I don't know. The main problem I think would be challenge would be to solve Derrick Henry, but they'll definitely be able to contain Tannehill, and I think the Titans will be. I don't see them. I think they are the second team in the AFC South, but I don't see them as a major threat necessarily to the Colts. I think maybe, yeah, I don't see them as major threat. Though, yeah, I think that's as far as I'll go with it. I don't even know if I have them in the playoffs. I'll be honest. So
wow. Okay. Bold.
Yeah, I think the losses were they lost a lot of people and they didn't really gain a lot of people back. They did get Christian Fulton, and they drafted Isaiah Wilson. But I mean, those guys they need to develop. There's a reason Christian Fulton fell. Yeah, that's just the way I'm looking at it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I respect it.
I also think Frank Reich's a better coach than Mike Vrabel. That's my last point.
I disagree with you on that, but we can move on. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on key games, or do you want to talk about our division standings first?
Talk about. I mean, I'm okay with anything actually.
Okay, I say let's hit on the key games first, and then actually no, we'll do standings first. So we can start with the AFC North. How do you have the AFC North playing out?
So AFC North, the number 1 team I have is the Baltimore Ravens. The number 2 team I have, let me see here. Number 2 team I have is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The number 3 team I have is the Cleveland Browns, and the number 4 team I have is the Cincinnati Bengals. But I'm excited to see this division mainly because I want to see how Baker's like. I want to see if Baker improves, and if the Browns are really about that life, they're going to be the scariest team in the AFC, no doubt about it. If he kills it, if he bounces back like crazy, dude, the Browns are a Super Bowl contending team, no doubt, no doubt. And I will also want to see how Joe Burrow does. I'm very interested to see that. And I think the Steelers are going to bounce back, considering they almost made the playoffs last year without Big Ben, and they had Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph and all.
Mike Tomlin is an elite coach.
And he's an insane coach, man. I love Mike Tomlin. I think amazing team. They have Benny Snell Jr. sometimes at running back, and they didn't even have James Conner healthy throughout the entire season. Very elite defense. They have an amazing defense.
They have a top 5 defense.
Yeah,
100%.
Elite. And they're getting back their big quarterback in Big Ben. I see big things. Juju Smith-Schuster had a down year last year, for sure, and I think he'll definitely improve this year with the quarterback he's more used to than Ben Roethlisberger. That's why I have them at 2 and 1. We already talked about why the Ravens will be at the top of the division, and looking forward to the Bengals and Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon, and to see all that receivers, T. Higgins, AJ Green, Tyler Boyd. They have a nice receiving core, and they have a great quarterback and great running back. I'm looking forward to them as well.
Okay, so when I look at the AFC North, I have the Ravens first. And then for me, it's really a toss-up between the Browns and the Steelers. I think the Browns are definitely a more talented team, but Pittsburgh's defense is way better. And I think if Ben comes back and if Ben can play well, and I think Ben will play well, I think the Steelers could definitely be the better team here. These records that you see on my screen, just don't disregard those records. Those records don't mean anything. It's just me playing around to see what games the Browns and the Steelers could win. But I think this order is pretty accurate, I think, in my opinion. I think I have the Ravens first. I think I think when you look at the Browns, I think they could potentially be better than the Steelers. I think they will be just because I think Baker is going to take a big second-year leap. And Big Ben, just the talent discrepancy, Big Ben is going to have to be way better than Baker will have to play to get the same amount out of that team. I think the Browns finish slightly ahead. It's going to come down to like 1 or 2 games probably. And the Steelers I had them making the playoffs as well, 3rd team. I think we're going to have 3 teams from the AFC North making the playoffs this year, with 7 teams being able to make it this year. And I really like both these teams. I think Pittsburgh is going to have a top 3 defense this year, and I think the Browns are going to have a really talented team, and they're going to finally put it together. Hopefully both those things happen, because I really like the Steelers and I really like the Browns.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Because I think the gap between the Browns and the Steelers are not too big. The next division, do you want to talk about is the AFC South?
Yep, AFC South. For me,
you go first.
We had the Titans first, obviously. We just talked about that. And then the Colts, I had the Colts making the playoffs as a wild card. I think the Colts, like you said, you hit on it. They're a really talented team, and they fixed their quarterback issue, hopefully, at least for this season with Philip Rivers. The Texans, I feel really bad for the Texans just because Deshaun Watson is one of my favorite players, and he's going to be stuck on that mediocre team that doesn't even really they don't have talent on that team, really. They have a ton of wide receiver twos, and that's not going to replace DeAndre Hopkins. They have good defensive talent. I don't think they go 6-10. I think they hover around more than that 8-8, 9-7 sort of range, just because Deshaun Watson is that good. And shit on Bill O'Brien as much as you want. Bill O'Brien is a good coach in the game. He's just not a good general manager. And I think they're going to be a decent team. They're not going to be a terrible team, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. And the Jaguars, they lost so much talent. Yannick Ngakoue is still yet to be traded. I don't think he ends up playing games this year at all. They lost so many good players. They're probably going to lose Leonard Fournette as well. They didn't pick up his fifth year option, at least for the 2021 season. He'll be gone. That team is really declining. The only hope they have is Minshew mania actually being a real thing. And if it isn't a real thing, that team is in trouble.
Yeah. I agree with your bottom two teams. I think the Texans actually do slightly better. I think they might go maybe 7 or 9 or 8-8. Probably leaning towards 7 and 9. But yeah, I think the Colts finish out first. The Titans at 2. I think the gap for them is pretty. The only reason I have the Colts ahead that big over the Titans is because I think the schedule of the Colts is I think it's relatively easier, and yeah, that's the main reason actually. 3 Houston, 4 Jacksonville. Same reasons that you brought up for Houston and Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville's trying to tank for Trevor Lawrence or Penei Sewell.
Who?
Penei Sewell, dude. The
Who
great.
is Penei?
He's an amazing offensive tackle from Oregon. He's like
Okay.
he allowed 1 sack so far in his college career.
Okay, that's interesting. I need to look more in the 2021 draft. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think they're on the Trevor Lawrence hype train. It's no doubt. I hope Minshew does well. Then hopefully they don't need to draft a quarterback. But I think I have them probably around the same for the wins, maybe 2 or 3 wins. I think that's all I have. So yeah, sadly, those 2 bottom teams, I feel bad for. Yeah.
Okay, we can move on here to the AFC East. I had the Bills winning. They're definitely a more talented team than the Patriots. Patriots lost a lot of key players. Did they lose? They lost Jamie Collins, right, to the Detroit Lions. They lost Duron Harmon. They lost some players that you wouldn't want to see leave. They still have the core minus Tom Brady. They still have, at least on the defensive side, they still have Defensive Player of the Year Stephon Gilmore. They still have Dante Hightower. But when you look overall, Buffalo is a more talented team. I think Josh Allen's a better quarterback, head and shoulders above Jarrett Stidham. I think the Patriots are definitely gonna go around this 9-7 record. I think just because Bill Belichick is that good, and I'm not gonna count the Patriots out until they actually have a bad season, and then I can count them out. But Bill Belichick, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt that they're gonna have a good enough season. But I think Sean McDermott is a really underrated coach, and Buffalo is gonna win that division for the first time in a while. And when you look at the 3rd and 4th teams, for me, this is pretty equal. I think the Jets would probably go a little bit better, finish around the 6-win range, maybe 7-9 if they get lucky. It all depends for me if Sam Darnold can take that third-year leap. He played admirably, but he also had mono, which really hurt him last year. Hopefully, he doesn't catch mono or, God forbid, corona this year, and he actually plays well. I think they have a more talented roster than a team like than Miami Dolphins. Actually, I don't know if you've listened to my solo podcast, but I had the Jets as having one of the best drafts in the 2020 NFL draft. I think they really improved from that draft. I still think they're 1 or 2 years away from being a good competitor, though. And when I look for the Dolphins, they're going to get a good amount of wins, probably hover around that 5 to 6 win range, just because Brian Flores is a really good coach, and their talent isn't there, but Ryan Fitzpatrick will probably carry them to a few games that they shouldn't win.
Yeah. All right. I have the same top 4 teams. I'm not gonna lie. I'm surprised you're that high on the Patriots, though. I'm not that high on the Patriots. I'm actually have the Patriots probably around like a top 20 team range, probably around like 20, 21 range. I'm not super high on them. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. But I think teams like Miami and New York Jets, I don't think they're by any means that far behind New England right now, at least. Because I think they both at least have a solid quarterback. Obviously, we don't know yet on Tua, but they both right now, as we can see, have a solid quarterback, Sam Darnold and Tua Tagovailoa. I think their offenses are also better, in my opinion. The Dolphins, they have Balaj, they have Howard. I believe they didn't they draft a running back, or did they not?
They drafted The
I don't
Jets or the Dolphins? The Dolphins, they brought in Jordan Howard, but I don't remember them drafting a running back.
Okay. But anyways, yeah, they also have Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker did really well last year. Yeah, I'm high on them, and they have Mike Gesicki as well, out of Penn State. Great. I think he's now in his third year as a tight end. I'm also high on him. And the Jets, I think they have a high potential team. I've seen some places, some websites that have them go as high as 9-7. They have a high ceiling, but they have a very low fall. I think I don't know.
They
They
need to
don't.
fire Adam Gase as soon as possible.
Yeah, and Quincy Enunwa has just now announced that he's out for the rest of the year. I haven't seen Quincy Enunwa play in like the past 3 years.
Maybe 2016 was the last year I saw him play. I don't even know.
Yeah, so that's another problem. He should get cut. I don't know why he's still getting paid. He's getting paid to take vacations, clearly. Yeah, I'm surprised you're that high on the Patriots. I know you're high on the Bill Belichick train. I like Bill Belichick. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I obviously, as a Colts fan, I would normally say I would have to hate him, but he's a great coach. I'm only. There's only so much he can do. He can't throw the football on the field clearly. So I think I don't know if I trusted him and that offense. That offense is, and they lost so many weapons on defense as well. That's why I have them quite low. Not as many wins as you have in 9-7. I have them more towards 6-7 wins probably. They have Brian Hoyer and Jared Stidham. Those are the top two QBs they have. They lost Jamie Collins. They lost Kyle Van Noy. Obviously Gronk retired, but they traded Gronk away as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not super high on them. I think they are looking towards drafting a QB next year, and that whether that be Fields, whether that be Lawrence, whether that
Trey
be
Lance.
Trey Lance. I'm very high on Trey Lance. We'll talk about that probably in a later podcast. But Trey Lance is amazing. But yeah, I think I don't see them finish. I think they'll have a top 10 pick this year in the draft.
Okay. Wait, you think the Patriots will have a top 10 pick? I don't think they will. I think they still have enough
Maybe
talent.
not 10. Maybe not 10. Maybe not 10. They'll have probably top 12, top 13.
I'd say maybe a top 15, worst case scenario.
Top 13. I think they'll be top 13. I think
Okay,
they'll
fair
probably
enough.
finish around where Oakland was last year.
Mhm.
Yeah, Oakland around that area. Now it's Vegas, but I think they'll finish around where the Raiders were.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can talk about the AFC West now, finishing off the AFC conference. Me and you both had the Chiefs for sure, guaranteed. When it comes to other three teams, really it's neck and neck for me. I think the Chargers really improved this season, but Tyrod Taylor really worries me. I'm not high on Tyrod at all. And the Chargers, I don't think Justin Herbert can come in and fix things either, like immediately. So that's why I think I have them lower. I think they have the worst quarterback situation in the division. And they might have the best talent outside of the Chiefs, but just the quarterback position alone has me low on them. When I look at a team like Denver, they've really improved. They got so many weapons for their quarterback and Drew Lock. Now it all depends. The ball's in Drew Lock's court. If he can, pick his game up in his second year and play well, the Broncos could be a team that could potentially be fighting for a wild card spot. So watch out for them. And the Raiders, year 3 in Gruden, with Gruden, I think they improved pretty well. Mike Mayock's a pretty good talent evaluator, and they don't go for these flashy players, but most of their picks end up hitting, and they get solid starters out of them, I feel like. So honestly, this order is subject to change, but that's just how I see it.
Yeah, I have the Chiefs at 1. We both do agree. I think the Chargers will be the worst team in the AFC West. Because I think Herbert. Yeah, I don't know if their QB situation is yet super solidified yet. But yeah, their talent is there. They have a great defense. Yeah, that's all I can say really. They had a great year 2 years ago. They almost were the first seed in the AFC 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
they're a great team. They just need the right quarterback for sure. The quarterback at least solidified and becomes developed. I think that offense needs to become more surefire, and I think they'll be back into the playoff hunt. I think give them maybe a year. I think next year they should be off and running. I think they'll be good. Second for me, I have Denver. I have Denver slightly above Oakland. It's not by a lot. I think Denver could even be contending. I think they'll finish around 7 wins. 7 wins, maybe. Yeah, 7 or 8 wins. Because I believe in Drew Lock. They drafted Jerry Jeudy. Great pick there. And they also drafted another receiver, I believe. They drafted KJ Hamler. Another great pick. But yeah, I think and then the Raiders at 3. But here's the thing with the Raiders. They did not have Jonathan Abram last year. Their first-round draft pick, I think, picked at 20. I think that's going to be interesting to see. And he was very hyped up in Hard Knocks. Yeah. So I think Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders, Chargers. That's my top 4, with the top 3 potentially being playoff contenders. I think it goes 1 Chiefs, 2 Broncos, 3 Raiders, 4 Chargers. That's my top 4.
Okay. Gotta love technological errors. Okay, so we can move on to the NFC North here. I have the Packers first, Vikings, then the Bears, and then the Lions. I think the Packers, when I look at them as a team, we talked about it before. You have the Packers, I think, at number 7 it was, or 8. I think the Packers, when it comes to, I think Aaron Rodgers is just a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins, and Matt LaFleur is probably a better coach than Mike Zimmer, though it's probably pretty close there. The roster talent-wise is pretty even, but like we said, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to come back with vengeance from getting completely played by the Jordan Love pick. Minnesota, by no means, is not a talented team. I think they are talented, and like you said, Kirk Cousins really proved something to me. And I think I don't think they're gonna finish that 11-5 or whatever they were this season, but they're definitely still going to be a team to watch out for in the NFC. When you look at a team like the Bears, the Bears are just, they have so much talent, man. But if Mitch Trubisky can't put it together, then I don't know what they're going to do. And I'm going to assume here that Mitch Trubisky does put something together. And if he doesn't, Nick Foles is going to come in, and Nick Foles is going to play decent enough for that team to have them winning, most of the games they should be in, but not winning all of them. 8-8 for me is probably best case scenario.
Yeah, that's for me as well. Best case.
Yeah, and for me, the Lions 6-10 for me is pretty reasonable. I think they could honestly go up in 8-8, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Lions made a play at the division, probably fall short at the end. But the Lions, for me, Matt Stafford, I'm higher on him than you are. When Matt Stafford was on this team, I don't know if you remember this, but we literally had a podcast probably week 3 where they almost beat the Chiefs. Matt Stafford is really good, man. They still have Kenny Golladay. They still have Marvin Jones. They have a good offense on that team. DeAndre Swift, I think, is going to bring some explosion along with Kerryon Johnson to that running game that they've severely lacked. On the defensive side, they have a lot of guys who can potentially improve. They obviously drafted Jeff Okudah first with a third overall pick. He's a baller, and they got a ton of Patriots players. They have Trey Flowers. They got a lot of ex-Patriot players. I don't know if Matt Patricia is a coach there, but with the amount of talent they've set up, I think it's only a matter of time before they can put it together and hopefully play well.
Yeah. I agree with your top 4 completely. I actually no. I have the Vikings at 1 and the Packers at 2. That's the only difference. Bears 8-8 tops. Yeah, I agree. Lions, they're also, I think, I don't know if they'll be that great this year. But I do agree that they made some great picks. They have Swift and Kerryon Johnson. Swift was my number 1 running back entering into the draft. Great pick. Especially since Kerryon Johnson's injury prone. And they replaced Darius Slay with the number 1 corner in this year's draft with Jeff Okudah. Great pick as well from them. But the Bears, on the other hand, they didn't really necessarily address the need with their first pick when they selected Cole Kmet out of Notre Dame. He is the best tight end in the draft. He has high potential, but they didn't have that need considering they just signed Jimmy Graham to a pretty big, not like too big, but a decently big contract. And yeah, I didn't see the need of that pick. But altogether, I need to see the development in Mitch Trubisky. I need to see more. And I think if we see that fire that he brought out, fire. I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying fire. That he brought out 2 years ago when he led his team to the wild card just to lose by Cody Parkey. But if he even comes like
Cody
that,
Parkey.
if he plays at least at that level, they should be a playoff team. But he needs to play at least at that level. But I haven't seen any progression. I've only seen regression, and that's not a good sign at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if he can get, I mean, I'm not even that high on him even playing then. But if he was playing at least at that level, I would not have the Bears this low, and they would be in my top 10. But he's not playing that well. And if he does play that well, yeah, they'll be a playoff team, and they could potentially even beat out the Vikings and the Packers to win the division. But I don't see that, so that's why 8-8 tops. Yeah, but I hope the best, obviously, for the Bears.
Yeah, I hope Mitch Trubisky pans out, man.
Yeah, I hope it happens. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I obviously make fun of. So we have a friend that loves Mitch Trubisky, but I mean, it's like I obviously wish the best for him. We only make fun of him because like he does dumb stuff on the field. I mean, he like takes like Cam Newton type runs and everything. He like does read option plays. Like he needs to know his role, stick to it well. There's a reason he was drafted number 2. The Bears clearly saw something in him that we didn't. He just needs to show that and prove it. Simple as that.
Yeah, pretty simple. We can move to the Saints here in the NFC South. I have the Saints first. This order is pretty accurate, and the records I think is also pretty accurate here. The New Orleans Saints, I had them winning the NFC South outright. I don't think, no matter how high I am on the Buccaneers, they're not going to beat the Saints out. And really, when it comes down to it, the Saints are a better roster, and that's really what it comes down to it. And Sean Payton's a better coach than Bruce Arians. TB, Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, Tampa Bay, all that doesn't matter when it comes to facing the New Orleans Saints. I've had the Bucs here second. I'm really high on them. You probably have them third, but just the offense I think is going to be explosive, and I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs. When I look at the team like the Falcons, for me, they're a borderline wild card spot for me. And I would not be surprised if they made it over a team like, the Cowboys or the Eagles or whatever. They really showed something to me to end the season last year where, they beat the NFC champion San Francisco 49ers. They went on a tear and were beating teams that they were getting completely destroyed. They should have been getting destroyed by. Matt Ryan is still on that team, and Matt Ryan is still an elite quarterback. I don't know if Dan Quinn is the coach of the future there, but they still have a lot of talent. They've just been getting injured consistently, and that's been hampering them. I don't know if you remember that week 2 Falcons-Eagles game where literally the Eagles lost everyone, but I'm pretty sure if I remember right, the Buccaneers also lost a ton of players as well. The Falcons also lost a ton of players as well that game. And really, it would not shock me if they played well again and bounced back. And when I look like a team at the Panthers, their roster is lacking on talent. I feel like they drafted a lot of young defensive playmakers who I think will play well for them. And I think they'll win some games. But I don't think I don't think they have enough talent. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater can carry that team. I think Teddy Bridgewater alone will win a few games for them, but he won't win enough to the point where I think best case scenario, they can maybe go 8-8.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree with your top 4. Actually, I did have the Bucs better than the Falcons, but not by a lot. I had the Bucs probably around like the 9-7 area, and I think the Falcons also go 9-7, but I think the Bucs have the tiebreaker edge. That's what I had. And I think the same. I think I also don't have the Bucs in the playoffs. I actually don't have them in the playoffs. Mainly because I have two NFC East teams. I have two NFC North teams, and then I have 2 NFC West teams. Simple as that. And then yeah, that's the main reason. Uh, but
I
yeah,
would not be shocked here if 3 NFC South teams made it to the playoffs at all.
I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked either because I mean obviously I'm not super high on the Bucks like you are, but I think I can definitely see it happening. I'm a big fan of the Falcons' moves this year. I like their Todd Gurley pickup. I hope since now he's back in his home in Georgia that he plays well and fills that hole with
I think Todd Gurley balls out.
if he balls out, then that's something to watch out
I
for.
don't
And
think
if
it's like 2017, 2018, like balling out, but I think it's definitely like, oh, he's still a good running back one balling out.
yeah, yeah, I think if that happens, and if Matty Ice comes back to being my Matty Ice, I think that's something to watch out. And he did well last year. He actually did pretty well.
Yeah,
It,
Matt Ryan is always consistently well, to be honest.
I don't think he's actually had a single like really really poor season. I mean, I've never seen a drop off year necessarily. He's always obviously the MVP to his next year was a drop off, but like come on, that season was incredible about Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Julio Jones was a monster. Matt Ryan was a monster. Devontae Freeman was good. That defense was good. I mean, it's obviously an anomaly year. So I think yeah, I can honestly see 3 teams coming out. I right now see one, but I think yeah, um, Bucks and Falcons. I think they're around the same for me, around that area. Yeah,
Yeah. We can move on to the NFC East here. This order is correct. I think the win totals are also pretty accurate. You might be shocked that I have the Cowboys above the Eagles here, but it's the NFC East curse where no two teams can one team can't win it back to back since the Eagles did it like 15 years ago. And until that gets broken, I'm gonna believe in it and I'll be superstitious and believe that the Cowboys are gonna win this division, even if I believe the Eagles are probably a better team overall. Again, they have identical records. I had them both making the playoffs, but it's the curse for me, and I'm gonna go along with the curse. It's a real thing. And for the Giants, the Giants, I think their best case scenario is probably going like 6-10, 7-9. I think Danny Dimes improves for them. He needs to work on his fumbling problems. It is really an issue for him. He fumbles more than I think any other quarterback, maybe other than Jameis Winston. He needs to work on that for sure. But when you look at their offense, talent-wise, they have a ton of wide receiver twos. And Darius Slayton has maybe potential wide receiver one upside, but I'm not going to bank on that until I see him put up like 1,000 yards or whatever. And when you look at their running back depth, it's not really good. Like we said, like we saw last year, Saquon Barkley got hurt last year, and that's if Barkley gets hurt again, I don't know if Deion Lewis and Wayne Gallman can carry the load for them. And when you look on the defensive side, uh, there's just not a lot to be really like happy about. They have a lot of good players. Don't get me wrong. Their draft, Xavier McKinney, all that really good. Defensive line, Dexter Lawrence, Dalvin Tomlinson, Leonard Williams, BJ Hale. All these guys are like good guys. I think they improved in the linebacker spot with Blake Martinez and Kyle Flacco, both from the Packers. But again, the depth is just not there. But when I do look at the Giants, look at their back end. I think their secondary is going to shock some people. Julian Love is a really good cornerback safety hybrid. Jabril Peppers, another guy who is pretty well known. Xavier McKinney, I don't know if he's going to pop off his rookie year, but I think he's definitely going to be a contributor and he's going to shock some people. And James Bradbury and DeAndre Baker, those are two guys who James Bradbury has already been well known for falling the number one wide receiver and doing pretty well with it. And DeAndre Baker, I think he will improve in his second year. So look out for the secondary. I think that's going to shock some people. But the rest of the roster, like their offensive line is too dependent on young players, and they have holes. I don't know. I'm just not seeing it this year from the Giants being a true contender. And when I look at the Redskins, for me, they're literally like the worst team on every single aspect in the division, except for defensive line. Defensive line, they have borderline San Francisco 49er defensive line potential, but I don't think Dwayne Haskins can put it together completely this year to the point where he will, be a year or two Carson Wentz where that team makes it to 12 wins or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll be lucky to win 6 games.
yeah. I think the Giants, like you said, have potential to win 7 games. I think that's their max, in my opinion. Shocked if they go 500. I think that would be a successful year for Danny Dimes.
That would be really successful.
Yeah, and for the Redskins case, Dwayne Haskins needs to prove himself. They have Terry McLaurin, who had a great year actually as a rookie last year. I think they need also Darius Geis needs to stay healthy for more than 5 games in a row. And top 2 teams, I agree with you, are the Eagles and the Cowboys. And I think I agree that they'll both make the playoffs as well. And I think the Cowboys will also win the division. I don't know if they'll have the same record, maybe 1 game apart, but that's all I have. And yeah, obviously I would wish the best for the Eagles. Obviously, nothing but the best. I hope they win, but I don't know. Like you said, there's a curse that you have for the NFC East.
It is 100% real.
Yeah, I think this year the Cowboys will win the division. That being said, I don't know if they'll have better postseason success than the Eagles, but I think they'll probably be around the same. But yeah, I think Cowboys win the division, Eagles second, Giants third, Redskins fourth. And I think the gap between the Giants and the Redskins is fair. So yeah, I'm cool with it.
Yeah. We can hit on the last division and then go to our best games. NFC West, 49ers, Seahawks, both those teams are going to be really good. San Francisco 49ers are definitely more talented, so I have them finishing first. Seahawks, Russell Wilson syndrome, that's all I have to say. The Cardinals are going to shock people. I really liked pretty much all the moves they made this offseason were really good. Bringing Isaiah Simmons to hopefully replace Tyrann Mathieu. Their defense has not been the same since Tyrann Mathieu has left. Hopefully they can go from like a bottom 10, bottom 5 defense to maybe even an average defense, which should be a big leap forward. Kyler Murray really showed something to me. I really enjoyed everything I saw from him this year. I think year 2 with Cliff Kingsbury, that offense is going to be dynamic with DeAndre Hopkins. They have a lot of wide receivers there that are good. Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella is a good speedster. You got, the legend Larry Fitzgerald still there. When I look at that team, I would not be shocked if the Cardinals somehow snuck into the playoffs if they really improved. That is not beyond the range of possibilities. They still have Chandler Jones, too, literally the most perennially underrated defensive player in the league, where he's like always leading the league in sacks and like, why is no one talking about him? They're going to shock some people, I think. I don't know if they go, maybe 10 wins, 11 wins, but I think 9 wins is definitely in the range of possibilities for them. And for the most shocking thing, I'm really low on the Rams this year, just because the way they've built their team so poorly, like constructed. I think I want to do a single episode on the downfall of the Rams. But when you look at them, they've invested so much draft capital in high expensive players, so much money in expensive players that they can't really fill out their roster, and they don't really have much talent. That offensive line really underperformed. I don't know. It's crazy because they were literally in the Super Bowl. But again, I would not be shocked if the Rams somehow made it to the playoffs, just because Sean McVay, no matter how much I crap on him, he's a good coach. But I'm just not seeing the talent this year.
Yeah, I actually agree with all 4 rankings. I think the Niners will win the division. I think the divisional race between the Seahawks and the Niners will be interesting, like it was last year. I think those divisional games will definitely be fun to watch. I think we'll talk about that in the games to watch this year. Definitely to watch out for. And I agree. The Cardinals, I think, are going to have a big step up. I think they'll be great this year. I think I like what I'm seeing with Kyler Murray. Great first year, and especially now that he has, in my opinion, the best receiver in football with DeAndre Hopkins, and have a legendary top 5 greatest receiver of all time in Larry Fitzgerald, and they had a proven running back now in Kenyon Drake. I like that offense, and they had a great first-round draft pick with Isaiah Simmons. I'm very high on the Cardinals. I think 9-7 is a fair record for them because that's exactly where I have them. I have them at 9-7. Yeah. I think they fall just short of the playoffs, but I think by no means they should be disappointed or discouraged if they fall just short.
That's going to be a successful year too.
That's a successful year. 9-7 is great. considering they're, in my opinion, one of the toughest divisions in NFL. So, yeah,
And they
great,
had the
great.
first overall pick like 2 years ago. That's big improvement.
Exactly, yeah. That's another thing, yeah. That's why I thought the Niners had the biggest – Niners season last year was nuts because they had the second pick, and that same year they won the entire – they won all the way to the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I think Cardinals, yeah, if they make it to the playoffs, big success for them. They're definitely one of the more scary teams to watch out for. Yeah, and the Rams, it's really weird to see them be the worst team in their own division, considering they were just in the Super Bowl a couple of years back. And they did lose a lot of key pieces. They lost Brandon Cooks to the Texans. They lost Todd Gurley to the Falcons. They lost a bunch of different players on defense as well. Clay Matthews is gone. I mean, yeah, it's endless. There's a bunch of players they lost. But they do still have Jalen Ramsey. They do have Aaron Donald. Those are the big names, obviously, of that defense. And their defense is still not bad. They still have a great defense. I need to see the improvement, though, from Jared Goff. I need to see more from him. I remember at a time he was in the at a time during the Super Bowl year, he was in the MVP discussions for like a good couple of weeks, maybe up to a month. If he needs to play back at that level, I think, in order for them to have this similar type of success that they're having now. And yeah, that's what I see from this. I think the Rams also win about 5 to 6 games. So yeah.
Yeah. When I look at Jared Goff, I don't think he's a bad player by any means, but he's definitely the third best quarterback from that 2016 draft class, in my opinion. And he makes too many mistakes that you wouldn't want to see him make. So if you can fix those, I would not be surprised, even if this roster is lacking talent. I mean, they lost like star players like Corey Littleton as well. But when you look at just their team in general, I'm not high on them.
Yeah.
We can move on to our
we'll move on to the
games.
Yeah, the best.
We're just gonna go week by week. The games that stand out to you. Firstly, this
the first
you
game
can
of
look
the
at
season.
first game of the season, Houston, Kansas City, Thursday night. For me, say what you will about the Texans, but Bill O'Brien is a good coach, and the Texans, Deshaun Watson versus Patrick Mahomes. I think this is going to be a pretty solid first matchup, and I think you're going to have the rust. Usually, the first game of the season has a ton of rust. This team's just getting back into the groove of it. I don't think this is going to be a hugely high scoring, like 50 points game from the Chiefs. And really, when I look at the Texans, I don't think they're going to win this game, but I think this is definitely a matchup I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be a close and a good first game.
Yeah, there's a bunch of good games this week, by the way. Just saying, there's a bunch of really good games. I think my next one would have to be Tampa Bay at New Orleans. That's going to be a killer game.
That's the game that stands out to me.
Are you
We're
serious?
lucky we get to see Breeze Brady twice a year now.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. I mean, that's absolutely nuts. And now I'm getting to see Gronk too. Oh God, that's amazing. I'm a big fan. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, Gronk, Brady. I mean, I like it. Against the Saints as well. Saints. I like it. I'm a fan. I like that game. And then the other game that stands out to me is Green Bay, Minnesota, because that's a great divisional game as well.
Yeah. Last one for this week one, I think the Browns-Baltimore matchup. I don't think it's going to be a crazy game, but it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top this week one because that momentum could potentially carry them on. We can talk about week 2 here. Baltimore-Houston. Again, we don't think Houston's going to be an amazing team, but it'll be interesting to see if they can do anything with that rematch from last year.
Yeah. Another one that stands out to me would be Minnesota against Indy. I think that's going to be a great game considering Indy is at home and Minnesota. I think Minnesota's a better team, obviously. So that's going to be interesting to see how that matchup goes, especially seeing Xavier Rhodes against his former team. I'd love to see that. And then another matchup that stands out to me really would be the Falcons-Dallas game.
Yeah, I was just going to point that out.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I could see an upset there. I think the Falcons could easily pull out an upset there in
Yeah,
Dallas.
in Dallas. Yeah, it'll be fun to
Easily.
see what happens there.
Yeah.
We can move on to week 3. Houston, Pittsburgh, and obviously, literally probably the best matchup of the year. Kansas City and Baltimore, Monday Night
Great
Football.
matchup. Yeah,
That's
that's a
going to be
great.
probably the best. It's interesting to see that it's on Monday Night Football and not Sunday Night Football, but that's probably one of the best Monday Night Football games we've had in a while, and probably maybe the best game of the year.
Yeah. Dude, there's so many good games this week too. What?
Green Bay, New
Dallas,
Orleans.
Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans is nuts. That's nuts. That is nuts. That week's gonna be fun.
I like the Houston Pittsburgh matchup as well.
Titans and Vikings, that's good. Yeah, dude, this is nuts. I like
Look
this
out
week.
for this week. I don't know if the Packers Saints is Sunday Night Football, but if that is Sunday Night Football, you got a great Sunday Night Football matchup here and a great Monday Night Football matchup here. Probably two of the better games of the year. So
Yeah,
look
agreed.
out for that.
And the Dallas game, don't sleep on that too.
Yeah, Dallas game for sure. Week
Yeah.
4, here, Philly, San Francisco, and Atlanta, Green Bay. Those are two huge matchups that I see.
I think those are the big ones. I think those are the major ones. I think another one that you could look out for would be you could see Cleveland against Dallas, another upset potential there.
Sleeper game there.
And Vikings, Texans, that's another great matchup as well.
Here, when you look at week 5, I really like this Philadelphia-Pittsburgh relationship.
Yeah, I like that.
We have a weird vibe. We don't really play well when we go out to Pittsburgh, but just in general, Philly is probably a more talented team than Pittsburgh. I really like Pittsburgh as a team as well this year. This will be a fun matchup to see who comes out top here. Minnesota, Seattle, that's another really key matchup that stands out to me this week. Anything else that stands out to you? Move on to week 6. Here, I really like the Kansas City Buffalo matchup. Your thoughts on that, Amal?
Yeah, the Buffalo Kansas City that's going to be a great matchup because I think the Bills defense is very stellar. I think that's going to be a low scoring game as well, and I expect to see great defensive play that game by the Buffalo Bills.
An underrated thing, just the way the timing of this, it's week 6, so probably late October versus if this was in December, I think Buffalo would have a pretty big
advantage,
pretty big sizable home field advantage. So just the way the schedule makers have made this, it'll be interesting to see if maybe it is still cold there in late October, but that has a big impact on whether or not the Chiefs can maybe pop off against that really great defense.
Ravens Eagles, that's going to be an amazing matchup. Are you interested in going to that game? Yeah.
I want to go to a Cowboys game just because I've never been to a Cowboys game, but this Baltimore-Philly game is interesting to see just because I want to see if Lamar Jackson's the real deal. The Eagles are, I think, built to beat the Ravens in a way almost where they have a lot of versatile, speedy, linebacker safety hybrids. And also they've been stopping the run really well the last couple seasons, and that's what that Baltimore Ravens offense is really heavily predicated on. They don't have that outside threat, so it would be interesting to see how well Philly matches up with an elite of the elite teams in Baltimore.
Yeah, I think another great matchup there would be Rodgers Brady. I'm surprised you completely missed out on that.
Oh yeah, I missed out on that one.
Also, Skip Bayless's Oklahoma Sooners having Kyler Murray against Dak Prescott, Arizona Cardinals versus Cowboys.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting as well. Those are the games I think.
Ooh, I'm hyped now. Week 6, that Packers-Buccaneers matchup, it's the 425 slot. I'm looking at it right now. So kind of annoying that it's only the 425 spot. But, again, Packers, Green Bay, I just love Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. You can call me a bandwagon, whatever, but both these players in the matchups they've always been in, it's always been a good game. So looking out for that. And the Arizona-Dallas game, that's a Monday Night Football game. So look out for that. Hopefully they get a good Monday night crew after firing Booger and Tessitore.
Yep. Week 7. I think
Pittsburgh, Baltimore.
yeah, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Um, After that, there's actually not that many good games.
Seattle and
Yeah,
Arizona might low-key be a good
yeah,
game.
that might be a good game. Green Bay Texans might be a good game as well. That's all I have.
Here, New England, Buffalo, just because I don't think there's a lot of stars on the offensive side of New England. But if Buffalo can get over this like midseason hump of beat the Patriots, they might actually have a really good chance of winning the division. So for me, this isn't like a key matchup. Like I don't think it's going to be a great game by any means, but just when it comes to looking at the AFC East and the Buffalo Bills as a playoff team, that's a key matchup. And then we got some really nice Sunday night football matchup here with Dallas and Philly.
Classic Sunday night. Classic.
Yeah, classic NFC East matchup here. And then obviously right before that, you get a baller of a game in the 49ers and Seahawks. Again, those two Seahawks games with the 49ers are two of the best games last season. And we're getting the rematch right now, week 8. So that week 8 schedule is really interesting. We also got the Packers and
The Vikings.
Vikings. That's in the 1 p.m. slot. So I'm probably going to be watching all those games, like no cap.
Yep. Same here. Yep.
Full slate of football that day. Really good matchups. Yeah. We can move on to your team right here, Baltimore and Indy. That's the first
That's a
game that
great
stands
game.
up.
Yeah, I like that game. Colts again at home. I'm surprised this game isn't on prime time. I'm surprised it's only at 1:00. Considering that there's not that many amazing games per se this week. But definitely a game to look out for. Again, Brady. Packers against the Niners. Packers trying to avenge their loss against the Niners. They got blown out completely.
I'm a bit disappointed, actually, that this Brady's Breeze rematch is happening. This is almost like it's early, late season. Like, this is mid-season. It would have been nice to see it happen late season. But,
fair enough.
again, really good matchup here. Thursday Night Football, that's a matchup to watch. This is Sunday Night Football
Dallas.
here.
Pittsburgh, Dallas.
Yeah. We got an NFC Championship rematch here, Thursday Night Football. Brady Breeze, Sunday Night Football, and Pittsburgh, Dallas. That's another really good matchup to watch out for. 4:25 slot on CBS, so you're going to get hopefully some nice Tony Romo action there.
Yes, sir. Week 10, divisional Colts Titans. I think that's important. I think considering that that division could go either way. Another matchup to look out for is your
Borderline.
Cursors on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Niners,
maybe the best game of the season.
Yeah. Niners Saints. It was a great game last year.
It was the best game of the season last year.
Yeah, amazing game last year. Yeah, those are the only 2 games I'm looking out for, actually. That's it.
Yeah, 49ers Saints. I wish that would have been a perfect Sunday Night Football matchup, but again, the 4:25 slot's a good slot for those type of games. We can look here. Green Bay, Indy.
Yeah, Green Bay, Indy is interesting. Another one,
Cleveland.
Eagles, Browns is going to be interesting. And Dallas, Minnesota is interesting as well.
I like this Atlanta, New Orleans Saints matchup.
That's also good. Yeah, that's also
those games. It doesn't matter what the records are of the Falcons or the Saints. Those games are just always good. Like those are like the perfect Sunday Night Football matchups where you stay up late and there's always some drama going on late in the game, and it's great. So watch out because Atlanta and New Orleans always have good matchups.
Yeah.
Week 12, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, rematch again.
Agreed.
Kansas City, Tampa Bay. You got Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. And Eagles,
Monday Night
Seahawks.
Football.
Eagles trying to avenge their loss.
Yeah, we're going to lose that game just because we always lose against Seattle.
Yeah, I think that's good, but that's a great game, I think. And the oldest rivalry in sports, Bears Packers. That's going to be a good game too, especially since it's in Lambeau.
Those have always been low-key good games as well. Even doesn't matter the records of the team.
They're always close. Yeah, the record is completely irrelevant when they play because I think the Bears for some reason play extremely well, and the Packers for some reason play just above the Bears. So yeah, that's always how it is. But yeah, I like that game as well.
We move on to here, the battle of maybe the rookie quarterback, Cincinnati and Miami. Who knows if Tua Tagovailoa is starting then? If he is, we're going to get a baller of an early matchup there.
Dallas, Baltimore. Dallas, Baltimore. Oh my gosh, that's going to be interesting.
Philly, Green Bay. That's a
Philly, Green Bay.
That is not the Sunday Night Football matchup, but still a really good matchup there. New Orleans, Atlanta, pretty much back-to-back seasons.
Bills,
Yep.
Niners. That's interesting too.
That's in San Francisco, Monday Night Football.
That's an interesting week. I like this week. Week 13. This is the type of games I want to see later on in the season. I like it.
All key games that matter. Like this could be a potential, maybe a potential Super Bowl matchup. But these are both hopefully playoff teams here, maybe playoff teams here. And again, we have the battle of the rookie quarterbacks early, so we can look at that as
Bills
well.
could even be the number 1 seed, dude. Their division's relatively easy. They could even be number 1 seed because they could honestly sweep their division. I could honestly see that happening, considering they almost were the number 1 seed last year. Anything's possible.
Anything's possible there with the Bills. The Bills is just Josh Allen can take that leap. He was good last year, and they got Stephon Diggs. I really think he can benefit from that. So we will see what happens there. Week 14.
14.
Pittsburgh, Buffalo.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, Buffalo.
And Baltimore, Cleveland. That stand out to me.
That's the main one. Saints, Eagles. That's the one.
Saints, Eagles. That is the 425 matchup. Not good game here. We got Tampa Bay as well.
That's gonna be an L, bro.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it because again, we always lose to the Seahawks and we always lose to the New Orleans Saints. So we're probably going to lose that game, but alas, it's probably going to be a good game. And then you have Minnesota, Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
good matchups here. Week 15. Kansas City, New Orleans.
Yeah, that's the big one. That's going to be one of the best matchups of the year as well. Potential Super Bowl matchup. Sleeper matchup. Eagles, Cardinals is going to be interesting too, dude.
And San Francisco, Dallas. That's going to be a baller of a game. Sunday Night Football. You're going to have Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth. And you're right. It's also one of the great, historical rivalries. Both those teams are, storied franchises.
Yes, it is. Yep. Next, week 16. Buffalo, New England. Yeah, not
Atlanta,
really.
Kansas City, maybe Atlanta can. And then we got our, yearly Dallas, Philly matchup, week 16 to end the year.
That's going to decide the division, I think.
That's probably going to decide the division. I have Philly winning that one just because we always win in Dallas and then we lose in Philly. That's just how it is.
And Vikings, Saints, that's interesting. Niners, Cardinals is interesting.
The Cardinals played the 49ers tough, I believe, if I'm remembering. I think it was a Thursday Night Football matchup, I'm remembering. They played them really tough. So look out for the 49ers and the Cardinals. It might be a low-key good matchup. And then to finish off the year, again, they're making the Seattle 49ers matchup to end the year. That's not a Sunday Night Football matchup. Hopefully they flex it to Sunday Night Football.
Bucks. Interesting matchup.
Yeah, we
decide America's a wild card spot.
Yeah, potentially. Dude, I'm hyped. I just can't wait till sports. It's so boring sitting cooped
Browns
up
is interesting. The Steelers Browns is interesting too because that could also decide a
division as well.
Yeah. And America's game of the week is definitely Packers Bears. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the cliche Fox.
But you have to put that as game of the week though. Like even if there's better games than that, you have to put that there. That game has been a rivalry forever, dude. That game is basically those games are legendary.
I think the Seahawks 49ers game would just get it because it's like the 425 Fox slot where you have
they should get it. I think they deserve it. Yeah, definitely.
But
I think it's a big game.
These matchups are always good. So if I'm thinking the matchups that stand out to me, you're getting a rematch of the best game of the year with the 49ers and the Saints. You're getting both Seattle, San Francisco games, a couple Dallas, Philly games, a lot of good Baltimore games with Philly, Dallas. and other really good teams. You have NFC Championship rematches. Any other games that really stood out to you that you're like, yes, I want to watch that?
Nothing else, dude. We'll move on. This will be our last segment, I think, of the show. We'll talk about our projections and standings. Well, I don't want to go by record because records
Just playoff teams then?
Yeah, we'll just go by teams. Yeah. So we'll start with the AFC. My number one team here will be the Kansas City Chiefs. You have the Ravens, I think, but I have the Chiefs at my number one.
So I have, just thinking about it roughly. So this is probably the better way to look at it here. So these are pretty accurate to my teams. Well, not really, not at all. I did not have those teams up that high. This is probably more accurate to my teams. So Kansas City, I think, will finish first just because Patrick Mahomes and the offense is going to fly and they're going to pop off. You have Baltimore. Baltimore at second for
Baltimore
me.
at 2. Yep, I have them at 2 as well.
I think Buffalo finishes as the 3rd seed.
I have the Colts as the 3 seed and Buffalo as the 4th seed.
Okay, so I have Buffalo at 3. Cleveland and Pittsburgh for me is a toss-up. I think they're pretty equally placed where they are. And then I have the Colts here instead of New England. I had them right here at the 8th spot, but I have them switching up, and they're probably going to make the wild card spot. And then Tennessee for me is going to finish as the 4th spot. I think they're going to be the worst division winner if they win the division.
Fair enough. Okay.
And then
are you finished yet?
Yeah, you can go.
All right, so yeah, mine 1, I think I already said, was Kansas City. 2, Baltimore. 3, I have the Colts. 4, I have Buffalo. 5, I have the Steelers actually at 5. 6, I have the Titans, and 7, I'll have the Browns. That's mine.
Yeah. For me, Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, Tennessee, then Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Indianapolis. And then run through
similar teams. I think we got basically the same teams.
I would not be shocked if the Patriots made it. I would not be shocked if the Las Vegas Raiders made it even. Those are my 2 sleeper teams to make it to the playoffs for the AFC.
Yeah, I got the Titans still in. Yeah, I got the Titans, I think, at 6. Not a big deal, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then when you look at the NFC, I have the Saints being first, then the 49ers. Then I have Green Bay as the 3rd seed. I think Dallas, like I said, will win it most likely with the 4th seed. And then Tampa Bay, Seattle, and Philadelphia. I think Seattle and Tampa Bay will probably switch. I think Seattle will be the 5th seed. But it'll probably be some like nonsense tiebreaker anyway. Those 3 teams are going to be really leveled with each other. And then for some low-key teams, literally all 3 of the teams right here on my screen, the Cardinals, the Falcons, and the Vikings, all 3 of those teams could easily make the playoffs. It's a pretty stacked NFC.
I agree. It's very stacked. I think it's probably the most stacked it's been in a while. My number 1 team is the Niners. My number 2 team is the Saints. My number 3 team is the Vikings. My number 4 team is Dallas. My number 5 team is Seattle. My number 6 team is Green Bay, and my number 7 team is Eagles.
Okay. So we've got the same teams except Tampa Bay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers making the playoffs. I actually have Tampa Bay at 9. I have the Cardinals above Tampa Bay as well.
Ooh, shocking.
So I have the Bucs at 9, and then I have the Falcons at 10.
Cool.
I mean, those are interchangeable. I think I definitely think the Bucs can make it as a wild card. I don't see that right now because I've not seen this current team how they'll perform, and this is a completely rebuilt team with completely new quarterback, and I'm looking forward to see that. That's it. That's all I have to add.
Yeah. Anything else you have to say about anything? I'm really hyped for this season to start. We're literally like 6 months out or whatever, but I just need some football back in my life.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to add is that several news that came out today. Several league executives believe Deshaun Watson will be the next quarterback to sign a massive contract.
Yeah, I saw that just now.
For Patrick Mahomes. I'm kind of surprised, not really, but obviously I can see where they're coming from, because I think if Mahomes got paid first, I think Watson would get paid more, just simply because.
Yeah.
If I were the Texans, I would also do the same thing. I'd probably pay him now than later. And yeah, I think I also heard that the Eagles are looking at some running backs,
Carlos Hyde, LaShawn McCoy.
Freeman, and Carlos Hyde, and yeah, I think that's going to be interesting as well. And the last thing I've heard is that the Bengals are starting to begin contract negotiations with Joe Mixon, and
As they
Joe
should.
Mixon Joe Mixon's willing to hold out if they don't sign him to a new deal, and he needs new money. Same with Derrick Henry, bro. I don't understand that. Okay, I agree with you. We talked about this multiple times. I do agree. I don't think the running back should get paid that much. But, I mean, that being said, he was basically their offense. So that's why if I were in his shoes, I would do the same thing. I'd probably want more money just because I'd want more money. But I think, yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah. Just touching on the Deshaun Watson situation before we head out. If you look at the other Texas team, they completely bungled their quarterback situation, where you don't know if you can even sign Dak Prescott. You just kept that going and going and going, and now he's going to get, who knows, maybe $5-10 million more than you could have gotten him for. If you look at smart teams, they pay their quarterbacks early. You got to look at the Eagles. You look at what the Texans are trying to do here. You look at a team like even the Rams. Their quarterback with the contract with Jared Goff was not like the best, but they signed him early, and it was pretty low money, like relative to, like what quarterbacks could be getting now. So just interesting to see how they're trying not to screw up their quarterback situation after they screwed everything else up. Anything else you want to add?
I have nothing else to add. This was great. I think we basically recapped
a good 2 weeks of stuff.
Happened. Yeah, this was great. Especially since we haven't been recording the past 2 weeks. I think this is a great way to start the NFL season with these predictions and our takes. I like it. Nothing else.
Yeah. We can head out now. Thanks for listening, everyone. This is a really long episode. I think almost almost an hour, 50 minutes. So if you actually listened to this whole thing, congratulations. I am proud of you. And share this podcast with your friends. Do all that fun stuff. Thank you for listening. And peace out. Adios. Thank you. Bye-bye.